out of Gen 9 this past week, there has been a variety of cards that have been going up. Granted, by variety, I mean there are various sets that are in the top 10 versus just 1 or 2 or 3 sets. There are, I think, six sets. We have cards from Stellar Crown, we have 151, Mega Evolution, Paldean Fates, Paldea Evolved, Destined Rivals, and Phantasmal Flames. So looking at the top spot, we have Mega Charizard still from Phantasmal Flames, the SIR. Granted, it's not like a ginormous jump as what it seems to be right here. Supposedly it moved $67 since last week, but if you recall, last week I mentioned how there were some funky things going on TCG Player, at least from TCG Player, maybe elsewhere too, where somebody sold near mint Mega Charizard SIRs for $330, and there were multiple transactions like this, and all of a sudden those transactions disappeared. So that really messed up the data, made it seem like at one point Charizard was $438, when in reality, it really didn't move a whole ton. Now, if we ignore that kind of, I suppose, false data, Charizard still has been going up, just not as dramatically like this. It has been more like this, a steady incline. And now the latest price capture shows it at about $589, which is definitely an increase week over week. Just again, not that dramatic steep incline or steep decline that was due to some faulty data. Now the next card, which is very noteworthy, is Cynthia's Garchomp right here. Not just because it's taken spot 3 in the top 10, but because it shows how really cool it is to have these deltas. If you look at Cynthia's Garchomp, the delta for January 6th, which means the difference in price from today's recent capture to January 6th capture, the difference in price was $7.23. And if you look here at the delta for January 12th, that is the difference in price from today's capture to January 12th's capture. The difference is $8.89. And by the way, the recent price capture is January 19th. Anyhow, this is how we can use these two deltas. If the difference between January 6th and January 12th is close to 0, that means the price didn't move very much between January 6th and January 12th. And as you can see in Cynthia's Garchomp, the difference between these prices, and I should say the absolute value because we're not going to be concerned with negatives here, the absolute value between these two is $1.60, about $1.60. So not a whole ton of difference. And we can see from the prices here, the January 6th and January 12th prices, that there really wasn't that much of a price difference between those 2 weeks. $193.70 on January 6th and $192.04 January 12th. Well, if the difference between these two is only, $1.60-ish, and we look at the most recent price difference, and that is for Cynthia's Garchomp, $8.89, which is definitely greater than the difference between these 2 weeks. That means the velocity has increased. It means the steepness of that curve in price. Whereas between January 6th and January 12th, there was only $1.60 difference. So it's kind of like this almost. Well, now the price difference between January 12th and January 19th is $8.89, which means, boom, it just went up like that. That's the velocity right here, where there is this huge steep curve. I should say it's the high velocity. If it's high velocity, it's a steep curve like this. If it's a very slow velocity, which isn't really velocity at that point, be, steady like this. Well, for Cynthia's Garchomp, it is high velocity. For some reason, this past week, it just jumped. Don't know if it's going to continue, but that is what happened for Cynthia's Garchomp. And this is exactly what we see in the prices here. January 6th, $193. January 12th, $192. Well, January 19th, $200. And obviously, the difference between these two right here is greater than the difference between these two right here. So that is one way we can use these delta numbers here, we can actually see whether or not there has been velocity. Keyword for today, probably velocity in the prices of the cards. And here is Cynthia's Garchomp. We are looking only at near mint. It is at about 199 on TCG Player. And this is kind of where we see that jump right here. Boom. From 192 and then boo to 201, I think. And that happened around January 13th. Yeah, which is actually that, yeah, within that time frame that my chart captured. And it's kind of hovering right here at the $200-ish range. Recent sales shows, yeah, $200 for the most part. You still see a couple $190 something, but it looks like the price is slowly being pushed up from the average. Well, even looks like on January 14th. Yeah, 14th, and then January 13th. Yeah. There's some $228, $230, $250 purchases too. So overall, this is still a very desired card. So if you have one in your arsenal of cards, good on you. Now, speaking of deltas and velocity, we can use that on all the other cards. So let's look at Magikarp over here. This is the Magikarp from Paldea Evolved. The January 6th delta was $15, and then the January 12th delta was $8.64. So using a calculator, because my brain doesn't go that far into thinking, let's do that. It's a difference of $6.52. Let's do this. $6.52 between these two. So $6.52. So $6.52 difference between this and this delta. Well, the most recent delta, of course, is this one, which means the difference in price between January 19th capture and January 12th capture. And if this is greater than this difference, that means velocity has increased. Because whereas there was a $6.52 difference during 1 week, well, the next week, it's an $8.64 difference. That means recently it went up more than the week prior. And this is exactly what we see here. January 6th price capture, $252 for that Magikarp. January 12th capture, $258. January 19th, $267. So yeah, again, the difference between these two is greater than these two, the difference between these. So let's look at Magikarp, and unfortunately, Magikarp on TCG Player, not very reliable. There definitely has been an increase, a very slight increase in price here. And we can best see it if we just scroll through the prices on the chart. So here's January 12th, 263. And then, it goes up to 67, 269, 270 now. So that's kind of where it is. Basically, Magikarp is slowly picking up steam. For a high price card, those dollar values don't really seem to show very much on the chart because it's massive. But if we go to price charting, it's probably a little more clear. Here's where we are. Right here. We're still in this incline overall from November 2025. So slowly, steadily, the average for Magikarp has been going up. Will it continue? It looks like it could continue for a bit, but like with every other card, there are always dips, along the way. But that's why you have to think long term. Is this a card that is going to increase in value over the long period? I think so, because that's what history has been showing us. This is what it has been showing us right here. Like that. So Magikarp definitely seems like a card that you should have in your collection if, you want something that holds value. Now, what about the other cards here? Well, other cards that have been showing a pretty good increase in velocity is Mew EX. I believe this is the Bubble Mew right here from Paldean Fates. Because again, the difference between these two old deltas and the difference in price from January 19th to January 12th, this is less than this. Or rather, I should say, the recent price difference is greater than the price difference between these two. Right here. And again, that's what we see. $481 on January 6th, $483 on January 12th, and all of a sudden, January 19th, $488. Again, these are dollar amounts for a really high price card. So it's probably not going to seem so significant on the chart, but it is still an increase in velocity. Now, what about for Mega Gardevoir? What happens when you have a negative delta versus a positive delta? Well, you still look at the difference between these two deltas. Just make sure you include that negative, and this is what it's going to look like. Minus negative 71 cents, and that equals $5.92. And $5.92 is greater than $5.21 here, which means the most recent price is still a little less than what it was, in January 6th. And that is what we see here. On January 6th, it was $257, January 12th, $251, January 19th, $256. So it went a little down and then it went back up almost to the point that it was 2 weeks ago. What that shows is that Mega Gardevoir is holding. It's not dramatically increasing in price, but it is holding steady at the moment. And that is a Gardevoir from Mega Evolution, by the way. The one that looks like this, the gold one. It's just been holding steady, and that's what we see in price charting somewhat. Now, we also have Bulbasaur from Stellar Crown. Kind of the same situation with Mega Gardevoir, where we had a negative delta value, which means there was a dip, but now it has increased again. $63.31 one point, $55 the next, and then now it's $60 again. So people were probably snatching opportunity to purchase this card at $55-ish. But here are the other cards that I had mentioned before that would add pretty nicely to your collection. There's Squirtle right here from 151. Charmeleon from 151, even Dash Bun SIR from Stellar Crown. I talked about that card briefly. I forgot which video, but one of the videos in the past. That one had also seen an increase in velocity. It was $29 at one point and still about $29 the next point, January 12th. And then now, January 19th, it's at $33-ish. The Squirtle and Charmeleon, it's 151. You can't pass on 151. Squirtle and Charmeleon have also seen an increase. Squirtle was 45, then 51, now 55. Charmeleon was 38, almost 39, then 40, and then now 44. And if you go to the next page, basically spots 11 to 20, ignore the code card here. Yeah, my chart does include code cards, but ignore them all. Position 11 was taken by Charmander from 151. It went from 57 to 58 to now 62. And then if we go down here, we have two more 151s, Alakazam and Drowsy. They have been steadily increasing. Velocity isn't super great like the ones that we had just looked at, but they are steadily increasing. Now, similar to Magikarp from Paldea Evolved, we have Raichu from Paldea Evolved from 49 to 50 and now 54. So that velocity had increased. And that is what we see if we look at the difference between January 6th and January 12th. That's like less than $1 difference, $4.54 and then $3.94. But that less than $1 difference is obviously less than the most recent price difference, $3.94. So that also had a sharper incline than other cards. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it is this Raichu, super cute. And the chart is looking pretty good. The 3-month chart at least. 1 month. Yeah, it's that little blip right here. I don't know if I can show it. I think I can. It's like this. Choop. That's kind of steep compared to what it had been before, whereas kind of flatlined. Well, now it's actually starting to pick up speed. That is velocity. Recent sales. We got a 55. We're ignoring this one. That's a Japanese Raichu. We got 52. We got 60. We got a 70. Jeez. We got 66, 65, 63 now. Oh, okay. We have some lower price points like 49, another 49, 53, 51. Nope, but in general, it has been steadily increasing and people are willing to gobble this card up. And this is a nice card. It really is. It's so cute. And since there was a code card that had taken one spot from position 11 to 20, I'll add one more card from the page after, and that will be Eevee from Twilight Masquerade. The velocity for that has somewhat picked up from January 6th to January 12th. There was not much difference, right? $2.06. $2.04. Not much of a difference, but that is obviously less than the $2.04 difference that we see now. It was $55, and now $57. That's a slow pickup for, a 50-something dollar card. Those dollar values don't mean a whole lot, but it still shows there was some interest this past week in that card. And this is the card that I'm talking about. Now, typically Eevee cards and Evolution cards do pretty well. This Eevee card, however, has suffered a lot in the past year, where there was a big drop from where it was before. Granted, I understand. I don't know if I would pay $104 for this card. That was supposedly what it was at the very start of last year, well, a year ago. And of course, it just went down. And then there's a big pick-me-up that we saw during the October-ish time frame from last year. We pretty much saw that in every single card chart, probably due to the hype of Mega Evolution and then Phantasmal Flames. And then the card had slowly seen a dip from its $78 September peak. Now it's at $56-ish, and this is what the 1 month looks like. And yeah, it looks like it will probably hold at around this price point. Up to you whether or not you're going to pick it up. It's a pretty cute card for what it is. That is a lot of Eevees. But I think out of all the Evolutions, Eevee is bottom rank, meaning the Eevee cards tend to be priced less than Sylveon, Glaceon, Jolteon, Umbreon, obviously, and so on and so forth. But I don't know. This may be a good card to have. I have never pulled this before. I'd love to pull this because, again, it's a cute card and it's Eevee. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is one of the cards that showed up in this top 30, basically, rank. And it is this. Not Kling Klang itself, but the Master Ball pattern. That has been something that I don't know if anyone has talked about yet. Maybe they have. I haven't been paying that much attention. I've just been looking at my own chart. But the Master Ball patterns. And the cool thing about my chart here is I can filter based off of card type or search terms in the card. So if I type in Master Ball, it's going to filter it for me for Gen 9. Here we are. And it's already sorted for me. Here, these are all the Master Ball pattern cards that we have for Gen 9. Well, these cards have been picking up steam too, as in they have seen, at least some of them, not all of them, but some of them have seen a really good increase in interest and in price. I guess interest and price kind of correlate with one another, kind of. So Kling Klang Master Ball has seen a price increase. Steady one, week over week, $12.61 on January 6th, $13.28 on January 12th, and now $15.17 January 19th. Kind of crazy. Crocodile, Master Ball pattern also, and most of these so far have been from Black Bolt. There are some Master Balls from Prismatic, and then page 2, spots 11 to 20. Yeah. There's some Prismatic, there's some White Flare. I'll say most of the top 20 has been Black Bolt Master Balls. Second being Prismatic, and then third being White Flare. The most interesting is probably just the top 10, honestly. Kling Klang at the top, Crocodile, Semi-Sage. Semi-Sage was $8 January 6th, $8.80 January 12th, and now $10 January 19th, Lilligant Master Ball, Among Us Master Ball, and you can see all of that here hidden among the IRs, which is crazy because some Master Ball patterns are worth more than some of the IRs that you'll find. I'm not exactly sure why, maybe because it's harder to find those Master Balls. I don't know, but people like Master Balls, and maybe you should like Master Balls too. I think the priciest Master Ball for Black Bolt looks to be Maractus. Here, yeah, no picture, but that's what we see. Looks like there's not. Are there some for sale? Yeah, there's some for sale here. I don't know if anyone is going to pick any more up, but it looks like people have been picking up Kling Klang, and there's not even any near mint available. Now, it's really hard to find these. Let me see. On price charting, I literally typed in Kling Klang Master Ball, and it's showing me just a whole ton of Master Balls. Did I spell it incorrectly? No, I didn't. So price charting may be a little hard to find. Oh, I probably need the number. Let's do that. Number 63. Kling Klang 63. And it's still not showing me what I need to know. How about Semi-Sage Master Ball? Okay, it shows me Semi-Sage Master Ball. I don't understand. Let's do Semi-Sage Master Ball. So on price charting, Semi-Sage Master Ball is way different than on TCG Player. There's barely anything recorded on price charting. And my guess is people are probably listing it on TCG Player instead because they can get better prices on TCG Player. Kind of strange. There's barely anything on eBay. Yeah, barely anything on eBay. Let's find Simisage. Definitely more items sold on TCG Player. Not recently. No listings available. Maybe the fact that there aren't a whole ton of Master Balls being sold or listed right now is because there aren't a whole lot of them found. I don't know. But Master Balls, I think, is definitely something to look at. Long term, I really don't know how those are going to go. I don't collect Master Ball myself because I can only pay for so much. And I just like IRs and SIRs for the artwork. So yeah, keep an eye out for Master Balls. Pokemon 151, definitely take a look at those. And if you have the money for it, I guess Mega Charizard 2. It's pretty pricey as it is now, but it has been steadily increasing in value. Who knows where it will be in the future. Also, Paldea Evolved cards, certain ones like Magikarp and Raichu, keep an eye out on those as well.